One of the reasons I'm a big believer in God's got a plan and God is sovereign is I never intended to be in radio. It was not even on my horizon. You know, I remember when I was a kid and my dad and I discovered Rush Limbaugh together, and I thought, man, one day that would be awesome to be able to do something like that. But it was never aspirational, really. It was never something on my mind. I went to law school. I worked at a law firm. I was involved in politics. I was on CNN. I thought, you know, I'm going to move to Washington one day. I'm going to be involved in politics. I got married, decided to stay in Macon. I'm still in Macon. I filled in for my buddy Kenny Burgamy one time on radio. He was on WMAC in Macon, 940. He was the morning show host, and he let me fill in a couple of times, and I loved it, but it wasn't a career goal of mine. I just kind of like fill in for the guy, and then he left, and another guy came, and eventually a morning show guy got arrested, and I was on CNN. They needed somebody to fill in for the guy, and so the folks, Ron Frazier then was the news director at WMAC in Macon, called and asked if I could fill in. And I said, sure. And so I filled in, and that one day became a week, became 3 months. No pay. I got paid in an expired gift certificate to Outback Steakhouse. And the only reason I know it was expired is because I took my wife to dinner and had to buy dinner. But I suddenly I suddenly loved it. And one day while I was on the radio in Macon, and you know, it's kind of just a shout out to the people in Macon, because I am now on this program across the state of Georgia, and I'm on WMAC. It was one of the first stations to pick this show up. And so thank you to Cumulus and the local staff of Cumulus and WMAC in Macon for taking a chance on this show. It's where I got my start in radio accidentally, without pay. And one day the head of Cox Media Group, as I understand the story, he was driving to Florida with his family and had talk radio on, came through Macon on 940, knew Herman Cain was leaving to run for president, and knew they needed a replacement, and they really didn't have a bench of talent. The guy they had intended to replace Herman was let go. And so they didn't have anybody, and he heard me, and he thought it was my show. And so he had a guy named Greg Mosheri reach out to me, and they offered me Herman Cain's job at WSB in Atlanta. I had no idea it wasn't my show. Had no idea I wasn't even like a real radio guy. Had no training radio. To this day, they won't even show me how to operate the board in radio. They say it's job security for everyone else. I have wanted to learn how. You know, you see radio people, they got the big board, and you push the buttons and you raise the levers. It's buttons. I want to learn how to do that. It's like steering the Starship Enterprise. I want to do this. They won't let me. I can turn my microphone off and I can turn it on, and that's all I know. Everybody else has. You know, there are some radio stations where you got to do everything if you're the host. Like Sean Hannity told me one time that he was a radio host. I think it was in Huntsville, Alabama. He was a radio show guy there, and he literally answered his phones, ran his board, did the show, did everything. He knows how to do all of this. I have no idea. This is why I have Jim and Charlie, that they can do all that stuff. But so they give me this job on WSB in Atlanta, and they think I'm a radio show host. I have no idea what I'm doing. I mean, I literally had done 3 months of radio, and it was all volunteer from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., and really it probably wasn't that great. But they offered me the job. And so my very first day at WSB, January 11th, 2011, the ice storm comes through Atlanta, and the internet goes down, and the phone lines go down because of the ice. So I've got to do 9 p.m. to midnight, 5 days. I'm stuck in Atlanta. I cannot get home. The ice never melts. I'm having to walk back and forth to the hotel that they were able to park me at. One night I had to sleep on the floor at the office because I couldn't get to the hotel. At one point, I'm in my vehicle, and it slides up on some ice in Midtown Atlanta by a Taco Mac, and a bunch of drunk college kids who are in the Taco Mac drinking because there's nothing else to do come help me pull my car off the ice, and then invite me in to have a beer with them. And I hang out all afternoon, and then have to eventually make my way up Peachtree Street back to the station, slipping and sliding as I go to do radio from 9 to midnight after I've been hanging out drinking with a bunch of college kids all day. And 10 years later, I'm still here. But within a year, I was evening drive time in Atlanta. Now, that may sound like nothing for a lot of you, and there are a lot of people who are just rooting for me to go away on radio. There are a lot of people rooting for my success, too. Thank you to them. But evening drive time is a big deal because it's when your cume is highest. It's when most people are listening to the radio. They're headed home from work. They got the radio on, and I'm doing evening drive time. It's a massive audience on one of the largest talk stations in the country. And now I'm doing 5 hours of radio a day. This show that you're listening to right now, it's my show. It's not owned by my company in Atlanta, WSB. I get a salary from that show. I haven't made a penny off this show so far. Still building up the advertising revenue and paying other people to help me get it done. But this is my show, and it's really been rewarding. It's been so much fun to do. And I can sit here and talk to you about whatever I want to talk about, and if I suck, I'm going to get thrown off the radio. That's just the reality. If I am a bad host, I'm going to get thrown off the radio, and it's going to be my fault because I said something I shouldn't have said, or I bored you to death, and it's just been really rewarding for me with this morning program to be able to do that sort of stuff.